What is going on, guys? Rodney here with cryptobros, where our video content is always poor, but the quality of our content is halfway decent. I don't know why I said that. Welcome to tonight's video. We are talking about POA, formerly known, and then even before that, known as Notary Network. Now, essentially what POA is a standard protocol layer that is going to be executing smart contracts as well as building decentralized applications and stands as a Ethereum sidechain. So in terms of what they have going on, not too much difference from some of these other blockchains that we've seen before that are offering kind of like just a platform for people to build stuff on top of. I would say their niche or kind of their target market is this small to medium-sized business or enterprise piece. We will talk about all of that, including what proof of authority stands for, how they're going about it in just a minute. But before we do that, just wanted to say thank you to everyone who has been subscribing to the channel. Seriously, thank you guys so much. I appreciate every comment, every like, every subscription. Although two guys this week, one dude said he wanted to hit me in the face, and another one told me to take pride in my personal appearance and put a shirt on. But we wear tank tops here, and that's just how it is. So thank you guys for supporting. Anyway, let's talk about POA. So again, in terms of a blockchain protocol, this isn't anything that we haven't seen before. We are going to kind of talk about what their goal is here and what they're diving into. So right here it basically says, like, look, there's a high technical cost, or there's a high technical barrier to get in. There's some pretty large upfront costs. Not everyone has access to do that and being able to enjoy the benefits of blockchain. So they're saying, our mission here is to basically, we're building a public network that combines the speed, the cost efficiency, and the security of these blockchains that you only get on private networks, but we're bringing it to these smaller based businesses so they can use it as well. It says, we aspire to become a decentralized hub for networks based on POA. So anyway, if we just kind of go down here, you'll see a very similar trend in terms of use cases. Organizations can build their own networks and use their own validators based on POA's network ceremony and governance. If I didn't mention this, POA stands for proof of authority. You guys probably knew that. But then also moving over, developers can deploy dApps on POA framework, something that, again, we've seen before. And this actually cracks me up. But it says the most innovative use cases are probably the ones that have not been thought about yet. Very true. Kudos to you, POA. But anyway, kind of moving down, we just need to define a couple things. And yes, I'm pulling this right off of their website, but this is kind of what defines their network. So it says, well, one, this is a proof of authority network, which means it's not proof of work, which is mining, and it's not proof of stake, which is staking your coins. This is proof of authority. And it says proof of authority is an alternative consensus mechanism which does not depend on nodes solving arbitrary, difficult mathematical problems, but instead uses a set of authorities, which we'll talk about in a minute, authority nodes that are explicitly allowed to create new blocks and secure the blockchain. And how they're doing this is a validator. And a validator is actually a physical person who is kind of using their identity to, or putting it out there for everyone to see, for a trust mechanism, but using their identity to essentially act as an authority, secure the network, seal the blocks, transact or process the transaction. So it's a very interesting project. And I should probably just read this. It's much easier. It says, validators on the POA, oh, Lord, seriously, I can't read. Validators on the POA network are known people who validate the blocks. Proof of authority means that they stake their identity to secure the network. Their identity is subject to a number of verification requirements, including proof of address and no criminal record. So very interesting here. Then over here it talks about the master of ceremony. This is the guy who basically would be ahead of it all and assigns a validator. Now this type of process, I get it kind of sounds weird, would be like if a company or an organization adopted the POA network, started kind of using that as their base, the master of ceremony would designate the validators. And we can actually see on POA's their own network, they're showing their validators, their keepers of consensus right here, name, picture, where they live, everything. So they would essentially, if a company were to adopt POA Network to kind of run their blockchain solutions, whatever it may be, they would have the same thing on a smaller measure. So anyway, moving on. They do have quite a few things going for them in terms of the dApp world. They've got their own dApps that run on their own networks, and including the ceremony, governance, and the validators they have going on. They've got management apps. I'm super curious to see about their ICO dApps. It's because they have this token wizard dApp, and it's a dApp from an end-to-end serverless and trustless ICO campaigns. So I'm very curious to see what adoption actually comes onto POA. You know, we're seeing projects like Icon, OneChain. These guys are all launching ICOs. You know, if POA can kind of do the same, usually that's a very good sign in terms of success of the project. So anyway, that's something to keep in mind. They have identity apps, proof of phone, proof of physical address, proof of GitHub, proof of bank account. So they've got some things going for them in that regard. Super interesting. Moving on. Again, this just kind of talks about their own validators that they have validating their own system. Again, these guys have to go through, like, you know, they have to kind of put a lot at stake. They don't want to spoil their own identity. You know, these have to be quality people that are willing to make quality decisions, protect the network, that type of thing. So super, super interesting. In terms of the team, you guys kind of know my spiel on here, fairly subjective. You can go ahead and check out these guys' if you click that more button, it'll take you to their LinkedIn. But going through here, you know, the things that kind of stick out, not the biggest team that we've seen in terms of, you know, blockchain platforms. So look what we got, 1, 2, 3, 6, 9. So we have 10 people working here, 3 advisors. PricewaterhouseCoopers is going to be the name that stands out. You know, this guy may be considered the all-star, if you will, depending on who's reviewing it. But, you know, worth noting and checking these guys out if this is a project you are looking to invest in. But moving on, again, and I think this is actually a super interesting piece here. If you were actually to go to POA Network or POA.network, this is the page that would bring it to you. And here it's talking about the POA bridge, and this is kind of their interoperability piece to the Ethereum network. And it says the POA bridge is an interoperability protocol that will allow a user to convert their own POA native tokens from a POA or from the POA network onto the Ethereum network in a quick and cost-effective or a cost-efficient manner. And then it goes on to talk about introducing the POA 20 token. Super, super interesting concept. I'm just going to read this. Just read this little snippet here, but it says, by connecting blockchains with these bridges, you allow for a variety of new use cases that never existed before. POA Network truly believes in cross-chain bridges is a critical step in the right direction as we aim to solve the problem of scalability and connectivity. Obviously, we've seen other projects do this before, especially when it comes to scalability and connectivity. We know about the interoperability network. We know what Aeon's trying to do. We know what Ion's trying to do. I think I just said that. I meant to say Aeon, OneChain, and Icon. So we know that this is a huge problem. And one thing that I can say when we see all these people entering kind of in the same field, trying to solve the same type of problem, is really what that tells me is, like, look, there is a big need for this. Anywhere that we see competition, it's usually a very high staking industry, right? We have tons of computer companies, we have tons of different cell phone companies, providers, whatever it is, brands in general. Just because there's high competition in there is usually a good thing. And I've said that before, so I'm sorry if you've heard that. So anyway, moving on to take a look at their community. Fairly tight-knit group, only 3,500 members, 3,550 in their Telegram, although this POA in general catches a lot of popularity for as small as some of their networks are. If we shoot over here to Twitter, 14,000 followers on here, but again, From what I can see, the community is very, very great. And anytime you have an ambitious community like that, and people who are nice and open and honest, like you usually get it, and it's for a reason. There's a good backing on there. So anyway, just wanted to point that out. Always something I look for. As I was digging through here just to kind of find some ICO ratings, I had to do a little bit digging. Initially, when I kind of jumped on board here, it was because, or when I started looking in here, I was searching for POA Network. I wasn't able to find a ton that actually gave decent ratings and what they were saying. Although here on ICO Drops, our rating hype is high, risk rate is low, and ROI rate is high. And really, we're going to look at price action in a minute. There's definitely some room to grow, and you guys will see why. But I also had to do some digging just to find some stuff from Oracle Network ICO rating, and we can actually see over here. They got a 3.22 on ICO holder. Again, you don't have to, this doesn't mean one thing or the other in terms of how it plans out. This is just kind of an overall, I don't know, kind of gauge on there. This doesn't necessarily mean it's good or bad, but it is something I like to look at. It's a small tool just to gauge other people's opinions on there. So anyway, we can actually go down here too. I was seeing if I could find any ICOs that maybe were potentially looking or potentially coming to the market on POA's network based on some of the dApps they have. I couldn't find anything on that, but we also I did see down here from ICO.best, they got a rating of 3.3 out of 5. So whatever, it's out there. It's popular. They've got a good vision in sight. I think they're kind of tuning into a market that isn't oversaturated yet in terms of trying to work with the small businesses, the small enterprises, the small corporations to launch on their blockchain. So anyway, last but not least, let's talk about token economics. We can actually see, today is May 16th. I don't know. Yeah, today's May 16th. Consensus is going on. We've actually seen a pretty big downturn in the overall market. Bitcoin dominance is at 37%, but our global market cap is down to 384 billion, which is fairly small considering we just came off of a 400 plus within a week. So surprised to see that with consensus. But anyway, let's talk about the token economics. POA currently trading at 57 cents. And is down 7% in the last 24 hours and 30% in the last 7 days. In terms of all-time high, that it's down 36%. From this one's hard. Normally, I would say, if there was I like to shoot for maybe a 50 to 60% retracement before I buy in, and a lot of times when I've had to work on this, I can exercise some patience and get in on a trade like that. But at 36% and based on kind of the time frame of this token, I don't think this is a terrible buy in the current time frame. We can obviously see the all-time high is 95 cents. And we'll look over at the coin market cap chart in a minute, and you can see this definitely has some room to run, especially when we're talking about circulating supply and total supply. I don't think it'll take a lot of adoption for this to take off, especially if we can get some companies backing, building on there, more dApps, potential ICOs like that. So super interesting here, especially if you have patience. I know this technical analysis thinks to sell, but we buy the dip. So anyway, circulating supply, 200 million, total supply, 255 million. So they're literally, I don't know what that math is, but they're literally all the way, maybe 60, 70, 80% of all tokens being out there and accounted for at this point. So very interesting aspect there. Last but not least, let's just kind of swing over here to coin market cap. So we can see, fresh when it hit the market, which was back in February, rough time to launch an ICO, minimal spike up to 66-ish cents. But then, kind of this low movement down here. We're looking at 24 cents and then a pretty big climb with our peak actually being just in the very recent time frame. This is May 10th. Where it was at 80, let's see, May 10th, 94 cents. I don't know what caused the big spike there, but we can actually see now today down to the 56 cents. So it is what it is. Anyway, guys, moving on in terms of the places you can get it, I'd say this is one of their strengths. It is on Binance. To get adopted, and have a ton of your volume, especially with this new of a project and beyond Binance, in my opinion, speaks volumes for the strength of the coin. Does a lot for the hype of the coin, the publicity of the coin. Anytime someone can get listed on Binance, it's pretty damn cool. So yeah, guys, that is what I have for you tonight on POA. I'm totally digging the fact that it is another blockchain protocol layer. If they can get some adoption, and I think they will, based on their kind of their path in the market with some of these smaller industries or smaller businesses. All the stuff is customizable. You can build on here and do whatever it is you want to do that works specifically for your business or your industry. And I think that's a very huge thing. Being able to have that kind of almost plug and play, no technical know-how behind it, gives them a huge advantage into breaking into that kind of smaller business sector. So anyway, guys, that is all I have for you this evening. We probably should have mentioned that the market cap is just over 100 million. They are holding in the rank of 131 currently, but with protocol layers and platforms and infrastructures being the hot ticket, especially in terms of ROI, I definitely think there is some room to run here. On that note, I will wrap this up. You guys have a great evening, and I will catch you all tomorrow with another review. Have a great night, guys. Thank you. I love you. Peace.